Perfect, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. This is Amir Banifatemi. I'm in California right now, and happy to be with you. Sorry I was not able to join you, but it is a pleasure still to be here. Two of my partners are in Madrid right now. Philippe Castle and Sebastian Torre are there, so some of the conversation can also be led with them. I wanted to start the conversation this morning by a visual exploration of where AI is today. Of course, as investors in AI, we try to find companies and startups that meet a number of market requirements and good timing on trends. Definitely, artificial intelligence today doesn't need to be explained. It's everywhere. It has its moment in 2022 with generative AI, and now every organization, every company, every country is looking at it. So that the special moment has given us an inflection point. And naturally, for investors and for startups, it had given a huge opportunity for new innovations and new creativity, not only to come up with new platforms, new applications in the enterprise, in government, in any sector. So from someone like myself and our colleagues that are investing, it has not been easy to figure out what companies to invest in and what companies to bet on, and what the landscape looks like. So I'd like to invite you today, and I'm going to share some slides to join me to look at the landscape and its difficulty and how we look at it. 1 second, so I can share my slides. Are you able to see my slides? Perfect. So the AI landscape in 2024 is not always been like this. So let me start with a few years back. In 2019, and naturally, companies that are following AI investment and investors have reported in their own way market maps like the one you're seeing in front of you. And this is from a company called CB Insight. And in 2019, just almost 5 years ago, they were reporting which companies are ahead in the game of AI and how they're organized. So as you can see on the screen, we have 5 sectors: agriculture, auto, healthcare, government, industrial, retail, and enterprise tech was a big chunk. And within enterprise tech, you have data management, cybersecurity, and naturally other applications. But we were not talking about generative AI models or stack. The concept of stack didn't exist at that time. We were just understanding machine learning, how is it going to impact, and what companies are doing what. So the way we were evaluating companies was traditionally the same, meaning that we look at the team, we look at the market, we look at the product, IP, position in the market, product market fit, growth scale, etc. And that was it. 2 years later, the market map looked something like this, where we're talking about industrial AI applications instead of just having application, and we sort them by domains such as healthcare, finance, manufacturing, food, as you can see on the screen, supply chain. And we introduced the notion of computing and data processing, AI deployment, which was not happening 2 years before. So for companies to see themselves in a market like this, for startups, as well as investors, now there was a new way to figure out where we stand, what market we are in. Are we in the market of AI processors, which was very new? Are we in the market of machine learning, monitoring, experimentation, translation, natural language processing? Are we in MLOps, which was a novel topic in 2021? Or are you just in a domain of application? So the industry is changing. Again, if we fast forward to 2024, that's another view. And you can see that these are very more organized and structured right now. So we talk about vertical AI and horizontal AI and AI infrastructure. So at the infrastructure level, we talk about models, AI deployment, security, data preparation, curation. And then we have now this concept of horizontal vertical Horizontal being by sector, education, healthcare, gaming, manufacturing. It all sounds natural, but it has taken a few years, right, to arrive at as this categorization. What you notice is that the number of companies are the same. We're still 100 companies, but these 100 companies are probably have been multiplied by each time 20 or 30 or even 100, right, between 2019 and 2024. What you see are the top of their field, where in 2019 we had less. So this is where we are right now. If we look at the market map today and company map called Sequoia, it's not easy for investors to figure out where a company startup fits. Is it just to be evaluated from a lens of a domain, such as healthcare, manufacturing? Is it the product market fit on the application side of the model? Naturally, when we hear about AI in the press, we talk about language model, foundational models, and then we don't pay as much attention as applications. But applications are still important, they're happening. This is a very good way that is presented by Sequoia, which is one of the main venture capitalists in the world. And instead of talking about vertical AI and horizontal AI, they're looking at it from a different lens: consumer lens, horizontal and vertical enterprise only, not general market, and then prosumer. And the way they categorize that by subcategory in consumer could be entertainment or music or gaming. So now we're going closer to the application level. We're not talking about the stack, we talk about applications, and we talk about also in the enterprise, features of the enterprise. Are we talking about customer support? Are we talking about marketing, so functions that are important in the enterprise? And are we talking about data science within the enterprise? Or are we talking about vertical enterprise, such as what we had before? And in the prosumer, of course, we have the typical foundations, right, of AI that is used by everyone, like you and I, we're using every day. I do every day use ChatGPT or Anthropic or other tools, but also we're talking about tools for manipulation. So tools for manipulation are not necessarily creating an application, such as Runway creates video, or Synthesia creates avatars. It's not the domain of application where you can solve a business problem, but there are tools that are going to be used by pro and consumers to create new applications. So the same way that this could be confusing, it's not easy for investors to understand where a startup fits. A startup might fit within multiple places in this diagram. Could be at the same time creating some capabilities as a tool, but at the same time trying to approach a vertical domain or an enterprise domain. So companies have to figure out, and startups have to figure out where they land and where they fit. This is not an easy one. I'm going to show another diagram, which is a different view from base 10, which have a totally different approach, right, to categorizing companies, which is platforms, code generation documentation, right, marketing and sales copies, which is more on the modality of AI creation, generative AI, of course. And then you can see at the bottom, topics such as audio editing, text-to-speech, music generation. So based on who looks at the market, this categorization can make a huge difference in how a startup can fit itself, therefore be evaluated by a venture firm or be evaluated by entities that are in the funding business. And this complexity makes life difficult for funding. Of course, the top leaders in the foundation of AI are getting a lot of funding, but it's not easy to evaluate application level funding. If we talk about generative AI, we talk about stack now. And the stack that we're looking at is like this. This is probably one of the cleanest stack that we can think of. Start with foundation models at the bottom, right? As you're all familiar with, GPTs and Cohere and maybe Claude and all the names that are featuring at the bottom of the screen. And then you can imagine that these foundations are going to be enabled by cloud and compute and inference, which is the layer on top of that, to create model tuning. And model tuning will basically to be used by developers in tools and infrastructure, only to lead to capabilities at the top. So this view, which is by the same company called Sequoia, is not the market as verticals, such as health and legal and manufacturing and music, but it's more about what are the building blocks that go into creating applications. And at the top is about safety, security, observability, and production and monitoring. So this view is another view which is almost orthogonal to the other view that I showed you before. We can go back to it, which is, sorry, this one. This view has to be viewed as complementary to this view. So again, for a company, a startup that is looking at investment today, finding a fit within the market map and the landscape evaluation of not only companies like Gartner and all these think tanks and consulting firms are trying to evaluate where the market is going and what works. Venture capitalists themselves, when they do due diligence, they're trying to figure out where the company fits and in which stack that company fits. That creates more work for companies to show themselves. And this is in addition to the typical and traditional pitch that have to be given as what the product is, the problem is, and the team and everything else in the typical pitch. So this is another view of the same, which was, so this is the same view as this one, right? This is coming from Sequoia, which is a venture capital fund, and the same view from a different company, Menlo Ventures, that looked at the stack, and they call it building blocks, which is, and they simplified it in 4 layers, which is compute and foundation, all the data layer, the deployment layer, and the observation and security and measurement and benchmarking. Again, this is interesting things to see. So my message to you today is that whether you're an investor or startup, there is no simple way to communicate among ourselves where the market fits. These diagrams are changing by the month or maybe by the week sometimes. And we're trying to catch up very quickly. We try to read, we try to meet as many as companies. There is a plethora of companies coming to us and talking about investment. And many times it's just a connection to in the generative AI to connecting to data models and to foundation models just to create an application. And that's something we're worried about. Let me give you some examples of the market size and where we invest. And I'm going to get 2 examples. One is in the healthcare domain. And the diagram here shows you in the world of generative AI, and we stick on generative AI for healthcare. And this is a rich diagram, but it gives you the size of each market in terms of how much money has been raised. So it's not a projection, it's actual measurement. And you can see that on the top green, we have life sciences. In the life sciences, whether it's drug discovery or clinical trials or personalized medicine, this company have raised 6.5 billion total. And this is in between 2023 and 2024 only. The companies in red, with the red box around them, have launched their product after 2020 and some of them beforehand. So you can see the more recent one are the red box. If you look at administration in healthcare, which is care operation, medical coding, everything that goes into the admin of hospitals and healthcare has less money raised, right? 2.7 billion. And the same thing in analytics. What needs to be evaluation is also 2.7 billion. So it seems that life science has raised much more money. And same thing as clinician facing money, which is 6 billion here. And patient facing has raised. So you can see that the market is being organized. The amount of money being put into AI and specifically generative AI is humongous. And the more we go into domains, the less investment you can get. Combating in the field of the AI stack is very difficult. It requires very solid teams, technical knowledge. But the closest we get to the application space, we're closer to the industry, becomes more obvious in terms of evaluation and investment and product market fit. Another view of investment breakdown is from a company called Y Combinator. And Y Combinator is a very famous incubator and accelerator in Silicon Valley. And they every year they have about close to 500 startups coming to them. There are 2 batches in winter and summer, and each batch they have about 240 companies. And they invest about $500,000 in each company. And as of last December 2023, this is again a rich diagram, but this is the investment by category that Y Combinator invested in. And you can see the number of companies invested in our majority in engineering, product and design, or sales or customer support, broken down by industry. But next to it, you can see the percentage of generative AI. So out of all the companies they invested in engineering and product design, 36% of them are basically built with generative AI. Same thing in sales or customer support. You see that it is decreasing, right, in the market domains. This is just a view of early stage companies. This is not a view of the whole market, basically pre-seed or seed companies. But it's interesting to notice that unlike the other diagram where we have huge numbers in healthcare, here there's a reverse position where we seem to invest a lot in early stages in the building blocks, right, of product design, and which is customer facing. So naturally, generative AI is conversational. It's the first time that we had an interface to a foundational model and to generative AI. And this interface allows us to talk, to see new images, to have multimodality conversation with AI system. And this naturally brings up huge opportunities in sales and marketing, customer support, and data productivity. I'm going to stop here to share my slides. I just wanted to give you a snapshot of the complexity of the market right now and how difficult it is at this moment for startups to get attention and traction. So I just wanted to give a few observations. One is that when we're meeting startups, what we look for, and this is not different than any other domain, but specifically for AI application, unless teams are extremely focused on research and have knowledge about foundations of AI, which is the language models and the building blocks and the stack, we're looking for solving large problems with clear value proposition. You still have to solve industry problems. And teams have to have strong founding knowledge in expertise. Naturally, we look at teams that have access to proprietary data set, whether it's data set or they have access to, but it creates a huge competitive advantage. Using public data is not reliable and sustainable. If we talk about AI system, they have to be explainable, they have to be transparent, and they have to meet regulatory requirements. The EU AI Act has been voted almost a month ago now. It's going to take about 2 years to be fully implemented and have some standards emerging. But more and more AI systems have to be safe. And you cannot imagine today taking a plane. Some of you take a plane to come to Madrid and thinking that the plane might crash or have some difficulties. The plane has to be safe to fly. So there are federations, there's organizations that make sure that the plane is safe. There's aviation regulation. The same thing will happen with the AI system. They have to meet regulatory requirement, which puts more emphasis on startups in terms of not only putting teams that have knowledge in this space, but also spend investment dollars into meeting regulatory requirements. Of course, computer resources are expensive, more and more, so managing costs is that. So this is what we look for in general as a first glance at the company. And when we meet companies, we try to avoid topics such as what we call AI washing. A lot of people use AI in their business plans and pitches without really substantive innovations. They just rely on other third-party property advice. For instance, they use APIs from OpenAI or from other companies, and they try to come up with new approaches. But these are not long-sustaining business practices. They need to have some really deep expertise themselves and not rely on third-party models, because that could not last. They sometimes have really no business model, and they think that because there is AI, it's easy to go. If we talk about seed, we don't look at the business model that much, but if we look at post-seed, definitely path to profitability is important, whether it's AI or not. Of course, there is a huge hype on valuation, and if there's a real business advantage or a real technology advantage, some valuation today, but a number of companies are trying to sail on the hype today on valuation, and this is disconnected from reality. And definitely, if companies don't show any knowledge about AI safety, ethics, and robustness, they're not going to get attention from investors, because we all know that regulation is coming very strongly, and companies that have designed their systems with some form of responsible AI or ethics behind it, or safety measures, will have to revisit their stack and visit their whole platform to meet not only the requirement, but also certifications that are coming. Unless they're building tools from developer to developer, the minute they're exposed in a business environment or public environment, they're going to be meeting requirements. And finally, readiness is important. For us and for companies, diligence is important. And on the AI investment, we have to double down on diligence. Not only we have to do the technical diligence, but also we have to do the commercial elements and the business side of it. It's not because AI makes it simpler, it makes it actually more difficult. The maps that I showed you, and we can invite startups to look at those maps, help only navigate this complexity, right? This AI landscape changes all the time, but it helps self-situate on where we stand in the overall picture. Are we more of a tool or more of a domain, and find comparables? And of course, be ready within the shift that is happening to the market. There are emerging trends that are happening right now. Not only the initial hype of AI now is being leading to real world productivity benefit. We'll look at productivity, not just the amazing aha moment of 2 years ago. And we need to gradually see that the market is looking for product experiences, not just a demo. Definitely the trends in multimodal AI, not just text or image or sound, is multimodal. The more and more systems are driven to be autonomous. So this autonomy creates a new series of complexity by itself, not only in terms of sustainability and technical validity, but also in terms of regulation and certification that I mentioned. There is more and more mainstream consumer adoption. You all read in the media that ChatGPT was the fastest growing product on the market. They went to 100 million users, I think within 2 weeks or 2 months. I don't remember exactly, but very short time, where it took some companies like a year or two, sometimes 10 years to get to 100 million users. And this mainstream adoption is growing by the day everywhere. So this trend puts some additional pressure on the product delivery, because now we have to also meet a growing competition from around the world in terms of products that are being launched. And finally, and I insist on that, there is definitely a strong push from government and state and standard organizations everywhere to push responsible development and responsibility in AI that will create a huge barrier to entry for many startups. And teams have to be ready for that and at least have some form of answers towards that. So I'm going to pause here on the slides and sharing again that I'm delighted to be with you and to share some insight of how we look at companies and where the market is going today.